how do you reward the community members? How do you keep them active? How do you recognize them? So, I just, what I'm so excited about, really, is to give ownership to the community, on our way to happy world. Ownership, governance, and incentivization model. That's what I love, kind of nurturing and building the community tools for it.
No, I think that's a great answer, and I think Twitch is a really interesting aspect of how community operates. And again, one of the biggest differences, and something that you touched on, is the alignment of incentives between people in the community and the team. And I think that's one of the most important things about NFTs in general, just Web3.
But that's just creating a movement at the end of the day, right? We're just creating movements, and communities with a common goal align around that movement. And you just got to keep feeding them with infrastructure and different tools so that you can feed the movement.
No, I absolutely agree. I think one of the hardest parts, though, is after you've achieved that initial hype, in most NFT projects, they kind of go like this, and then they go like this. How do you keep, Lin, I want to throw it over to you. In regards to community, what do you think is the best way to actually motivate people to interact, to build? Because it's one of the most important aspects.
Yeah, community existed long before it kind of did become a buzzword last year, right? Like community was, if you think about, back in the 70s, 80s, homebrew computing clubbing, like Silicon Valley was like kind of just a group of builders just starting to build because they love building. And if you think about the early social networks, it was like college students got together, they were forming a community and they can kind of talk and chat with each other. Last year, I think the motivation is the biggest important thing, right? Like, are you part of this community because you want to build something into the future because there's a shared common goals more than just the shared common goal of appreciation in token price. So, I think that way kind of came and went, and the true community that is going to be lasting through this and lasting through Web 4, Web 5, Web 69 is really the ones that have some other sharing, like common sharing passion and motive and goal. So that's gonna be the determining factor that kind of separates kind of the people that use community as a buzzword versus people are really kind of heads down, like really enjoying communicating and like getting together to build something.
No, I think that's a great point, and unfortunately, I see a lot of times community is used, and we actually did a space one time. It was called Community is a Rug. It was a choice space. And every single person, they saw the title, they came in and said, what are you talking about? What do you mean community is a rug? That's what Web3 is built on. Frank remembers this one. But ultimately, what I feel in many, many projects, and I want to ask you about this specifically, is how do you go from that level of, okay, we're just together to pump our bags, to a point of, okay, let's actually get together and build something important?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important for a community, whether centralized or decentralized, to have a really clear mission, vision, values. Like, sometimes it can be corny corporate talk or whatever, but whether that's like implicit or explicit, having a purpose and a reason to be there beyond just financialization and speculation, I believe keeps communities intact and creates reasons for a community to mobilize and build together over a long period of time that sort of transcends the specific, say, price or hype or trend parameters that, things that don't have a clear mission or vision, give it the space to actually create. And so, when you were speaking earlier about what community means, I think what's most interesting about what's currently happening with whatever Web 3, 4, 69 we're in is that there's new alternative business models to how communities can actually collaborate and work together. I think we're now exiting this traditional, say, ad-based, social media-driven community format that existed previously on just how many followers do you have, and now we're moving into a new area where communities can actually create their own economies, create their own forms of currency, create and exchange value between each other, and grow sort of market cap for communities. That, when paired with a really exciting mission, vision, direction, it can be as grand as creating a new community-owned social network. It can be as fun as trying to buy the Constitution down, whatever. But when there's focus, interesting things happen when incentives and coordination are layered on top of that.
No, I think that was beautifully articulated. So one of the things I've kind of been thinking about recently is Reddit and their digital collectibles, right? We all hop in on Twitter for a couple days, everything went wild, and it kind of went a little bit quiet. Now, the one interesting aspect about Reddit is that these communities were actually formed not for financial incentive, but over a common ground of some sort of topic. You have subreddits. I actually think that subreddits creating DAOs is going to be a big thing as well, because again, they've already been aligned over something that doesn't have to do with NFTs. One of the hardest parts about NFTs is you're getting together over something that specifically really like has some sort of dollar value, whatever it might be. So Frank, specifically with youths, ultimately, I mean, on day zero, you had a community that was already creating sub-DAOs. On day zero, you had multiple companies forming within a project, which is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. It's extremely impressive, and I think it's something that there isn't, well, I want to ask you, if you could, in some sort of tangible manner, articulate how you went about doing that, and do you think it was due to the success of DeGods before it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. I think with youths it's very interesting because I'm a big fan of incentive alignment and then making things really simple. Like there's this term, you know, with growth called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And so with youths, you know, we actually just made literally every NFT the exact same rarity. And that was a really challenging process algorithmically for us to do. But the final result is that, you know, people are incentivized to build sub-DAOs because that's what actually just creates the value of the NFT. So, I mean, I have on my NFT, I got this headband, I'm pumping my bags right now, and you know, overall, you want to create the playground for people to really feel like they can build in a safe place. And I think that's a big thing that separates strong communities from weaker communities over time is, do the builders on top of that community feel like their work is not going to get wasted? Because I think that's one of the saddest parts about this whole ecosystem, you know, fucking Solana going down 95%, like all these different things where people feel jaded to continue to put in effort because they don't know if their work is just going to go, you know, disappear overnight. And so I think you have to create a culture where you're like, hey, we as the team, we're not fucking going anywhere. So, you know, if you're going to build something on top of this, we're going to help you get distribution and the work you're doing and the friends you're making are going to last a long time. But yeah, that's kind of like, I think, the setup, the raw setup mechanics of why there's so many sub-DAOs for youths, because you can't just resort to traditional rarity. You know, we set it up in a way where everything is the same, so now where does value come from? Yeah.
Where does your community meet? Like where can they hang out when you're sleeping or whatever?
Mostly Twitter and Discord, like the basic stuff. But I think part of it is like there's just a deep culture of just supporting people that are making cool stuff. So one of the stats I'm most proud of is like from DeGods, there's been like 30 successful, you know, NFT project founders that have come out of our community because like, you know, we'll support each other because it's kind of that, you know, if they win, we win type of mentality that is pretty addicting.
Cool. I actually have a question for you guys. What I'm finding, I mean, what I'm trying to figure out right now is that I have, you know, just for simplicity, I have the Web 2. You know, in the music industry, I have a lot of Web 2 people. That's about 90% of my audience, my community. And then, you know, you have the people that are Web 3 native, but, you know, I kind of segregate when I go on Discord because the Web 2 guys, they don't want to come on Discord. So I'm trying to figure out right now where's somewhere we can actually meet regularly or any time of the day where these, you know, people can converse and everything. And I haven't really figured out that solution yet. Do you guys know anything about that?
I have some thoughts on this. So I think Twitter is definitely just the best, right? Like we're quadruple downing on Twitter. Like it's the platform, the place to be for anything Web3 related, I think. But I think a lot of conversation tends to happen when you do stuff that's worth talking about. So like I look at content and entertainment and just making things that are exciting and things that are worth, you know, people talking about. Like we joke internally, like I want to do stuff with our projects that make this guy who hosts Twitter Spaces like talk about it as one of his topics for the day. So I think that you have to lubricate people's desire to like even converse about whatever you're doing, and then it'll naturally find its place. But I think Twitter Spaces and just like Twitter conversation overall tends to be the most dynamic. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, we're going through the same thing, right? So much of FWB's community, their first token they buy is first Ethereum to then buy FWB, and we're sort of onboarding a lot of folks who aren't crypto or Web3 native. And for us, we've just learned Discord has become way too intense of a place. And sort of the synchronous chat nature isn't really conducive to a community, you know, that, you know, we're not 5,000, 6,000 people to actually stay involved. And our answer has actually been one, like doubling down on physical and IRL, because when you put that forward, people then form their own connections.
Oh, definitely.
And that's been huge in terms of we now do 30 events a month organized by community members.
You do 30 events a month?
Yeah, community organized.
Yeah, amazing.
And they'll then connect, and then we've actually been putting so much resources and energy into building our own sort of social networking space, so in the form of a mobile app that is much more focused. And
So an app, basically a mobile app. But what do you do when you want to be in like 50 different communities or 100 of them, which we already are? It's not an efficient use of a human's time to be like so scattered like that, you know? So I'm still looking for that.
Yeah, I think the answer is, and this is for the whole space, the infrastructure needs to improve dramatically. Even wallet onboarding, token onboarding, convening spaces. There's still a lot of people building Discord competitors, but so far I haven't really seen anything that's been able to really help bridge that.
Any kind of wallet-based messaging is your social media thing that you're building?
Yeah, XMTP-based wallet messaging.
All right.
I think you brought up a great point, right? Like you have like 97% of your Web2 audience, which is like so important. It would be such a huge movement if every project, every artist can actually bring their non-Web3 native users into the space. And I think we're working very critically, and really I think it's about actually making the technology disappear and feel like it disappeared, right? So we launched actually pretty recently, very successfully, the Biggie Smalls collection, his versa collection. We called it a collective. We didn't call it a DAO. It's the Sky's the Limit collective, and everybody, we did call it NFTs, but I think in the future evolution, we almost will figure out a way to how do we not call this an NFT? What essentially was the members got to own a piece of Biggie Smalls, a fractional ownership of Biggie Smalls, like most famous freestyle, and they get to decide how to commercialize that. That idea was like super powerful, and we brought in, I think 2/3 of the users were first time, never touched Web3, but everybody just want to be part of the Biggie legacy, right, and be contribute. That fandom, I think we took a first step, but the next version of this is how do we get even more people involved without actually, try to use the word Web3 or NFT or anything, right? So
I love that so much because it's I hear that and I think to myself, that's dope. And I think that a lot of times we overcomplicate a lot of the different things in the space, but it really just comes down to doing something that's really worth talking about. So I know when you mentioned community earlier, someone said the Constitution and we're gonna buy a Constitution. Whatever people might think about, the token or whatever happened, it's that was a fucking moment. That was, oh shit, they're gonna buy the Constitution, what's happening? And that gets people to pay attention. Earlier this year, we bought a basketball team. It was a big 3 basketball team, but the headline was NFT Project buys basketball team. And it was things like this, I think, are catalyzing moments, like Reddit having NFTs. These are all things that catalyze and get people to talk about it, but the default is usually kind of boring stuff. And I think the more our space just thinks crazier and does crazier things, the more we're gonna grow at a basic level, yeah.
Well, you said before, keep it simple, right? So, the way I've identified how to bring people into this space is just to give them something that they want. You know what I mean? So I define what's value. What do people want from me? They want a good time. They want track IDs. They want my edits, and they want concert tickets, and they want to be backstage. You know what I mean? They want to be in the booth. So that's how I'm getting people in the space, and that's how I'm building my community. So I'm doing these micro activations, this edits NFT project, so the producers can get that music, and just keeping it really simple like that. You just got to define what is value in your ecosystem, and then you can align, incentives around that.
Love that.
I love everything that y'all are saying. And I think we've now talked about a lot of the good stuff and how to actually do it and what community could mean, but what do you think is actually the problem with why most communities end up dwindling out? What is, and anybody feel free to jump in, open dialogue.
So can you repeat, sorry? It's a weird reverb.
So with communities, many times, obviously they just fizzle out, but what is the biggest problem with community? Why do most communities not actually work?
Like a SBF problem, right? Most of these projects caught on to 3 or 4 buzzwords. Last year, if you literally put out a project with cartoon anything and you use the word community decentralization, right, and whatever, right, yeah, like, or utility, right, even though there's no utility, you drew a roadmap and you took like $2 million off the table, and where are these founders? Like, give yourself a round of applause here. Like, here are the builders, the people that's interested in the future that still made it out, right? And this is like, give yourself a round of applause. It's Friday afternoon, like, you guys should be like sleeping, recovering from last night. You're here to listen to everybody. This is where the future is building, right? So, I think a lot of projects quietly went away because they couldn't deliver on those promises. The biggest problem is like being hiding a project that really didn't have long-term intentions to build community, just use community as a buzzword.
Good.
Oh, yeah, I'll be quick. I think it's actually like is what he said 100%, but I think it's also just a lack of content and again like doing things that are exciting. Because I think a big thing that if you think about community and like Web3, so often what are like the basic things to get a community to rally? It's like number go up, shit's pumping, like okay, people are rallying, it's exciting. But also just like on any random day, is the project like doing something that again, it's sometimes it's just really simple to me. Like, are they doing something that's just worth relevancy, like worth talking about, worth keeping top of mind? And if not, then naturally people are in like 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 different projects. So like quickly what happens is the ones that are not doing things that are worth talking about end up fading like further and further unless people are interested in that. And then the ones that are doing things that people care about, then that's what's going to get more and more of the attention. So it's just the nature of the game. Like there's so much an oversupply of NFTs like across the board and just crypto and everything. Then like it's obviously going to consolidate to things that are worth being excited about.
I think taking a step back from even like NFTs and crypto, I've been in sort of doing community work and working in like cultural work for 7-8 years. I was leading a community called Summit Series, and it was a global community as well, and through a lot of concerts and raves before that. And I think it's actually about and I see interesting parallels with decentralized communities where everyone says, oh, there's no leader, but I actually think great communities, especially in the beginning, have to start with leaders. It doesn't have to be like centralized dictatorial leadership, but any great community, any great scene or movement leads by example and has leaders who step up to the plate, whether explicitly chosen or organically risen, that helps set and define that culture. And so I think for people who are here building communities, whether it's in crypto or not, promote people in the community into positions of leadership, give them the space to grow. I'm saying, when they initiated the community, a dozen sub-DAOs started, that's a way to do that. If you're throwing parties, the people who are showing up early want to get involved, let them work the door, let them volunteer and get involved. That creates organic hierarchical structures inside of communities that then create, I think, more dynamic subcultures that ultimately make a very colorful community that feels a lot more interesting than just a group of people who are hanging out looking for a thing to do. And so I think we build lasting communities, lasting brands. It's about creating aspiration within groups of people that I think are defined through implicitly or explicitly promoting leaders to help collectively define what that culture or that texture of that community looks like. And I think NFTs or crypto have just now introduced an incentivization layer where you can now actually reward the person who's helping work the door really early on. You can now reward the designer who's making the graphic for the flyer before they were doing it out of labor of love. And that's been the most exciting thing for me as someone who's done a lot of community work. Now in the Web3 community space is seeing new tools to actually reward contributors, where before it was like, cool, you're helping out for the vibes and because this is a scene. Now these scenes can actually grow into economies.
I think a lot of times, and fantastic points, I think a lot of times, like we talk to a lot of founders, especially in the Twitter spaces, they're always asking, why isn't my community doing more? Like, why are they not working for the project? And I think it's not just as simple as like, hey, can y'all go make some memes on Twitter and market for us? That's not really how it works. And I think a lot of founders think about it that way, that this is a free marketing. But you're not entitled to anything by your community. Your community doesn't have to do anything. And I think a lot of times it's not about what your community can do for you, but what you can do for your community. And Frank, if you could just TLDR, 30 seconds, how do you get your community to act the way they do?
it really comes down to, I mean, on a mechanical level, like let's just say you build something for DeGods or youths historically, like we will go out of our way to help you get more distribution around that thing that you're building. So like, whether it's me retweeting it, whether it's me talking to you about how you can market it or build it to be a bigger thing, it's like, you get that incentive, right, at a core, like, Lizard brand level. Like, you know if you're gonna build something on top of DeGods or youths, you're gonna get the pump, like, you're gonna get people excited about it, because we tend to take a lot of time to focus on it. But I think what you hit on is a very real thing that, at the end of the day, I just have a deep reverence and gratitude for people that do build on top of whatever we're building, because I don't take that for granted. Because if anyone's tried to build something in like the Web2 world or whatever it is, it's like nobody's building shit for you. Like nobody's building on top of whatever you're making. Like that doesn't exist. And in the bull run, you know, people just took that, I think, for granted to a really insane degree. Just like, oh yeah, community's gonna build everything. But like, bro, community's not gonna do anything unless there's like a proper incentive mechanism to create that. It could be loose. It doesn't need to be like this, oh, you're gonna make $2 for every tweet or whatever, but it still needs to be some kind of upside for the people that are doing stuff on top of it, and that could be audience, it could be financial, it could be a different set of things, but having a good idea of what that is, I think, is really important. And for us, it's like distribution and audience, right? I think that's why people build on top of DeGods and youths.
No, I appreciate y'all so much. Honestly, really great topic. Please, y'all, give a round of applause. These are some of the best builders in the space.
Thank you.